Yes, you will be refused a visa if you don't look at these 5 critical things I'll be talking about in this video. So stay tuned, as your visa approval might just depend on you watching this video. So first, you'll be refused a visa if your bank statement raises several red flags. And the first red flag that your bank statement can raise is unexplained lump sum. So if you have any large deposit at all that was shortly made into your account shortly before you submitted your visa application, and you didn't provide very clear documented source of that large deposit, it could result to the refusal of your visa. So concerning your bank statement, also another red flag is you have a very low opening balance and a high closing balance. You get that right? A low opening balance and a high closing balance. That sudden increase, that sudden change, some bank statement for 6 months, some for 3 months. So the first page you see the opening, and the last page, of course, is the closing balance, which is the balance readily available as at when you are submitting that document for your visa application. So if that bank statement reads that discrepancy is very large, very high opening and very low opening and very high closing, it raises a red flag, and it could be just interpreted as you making that funds for show of demonstration. Like that's what Canada IRCC calls it. So they don't believe that you have the fund, but it's just for like an official inflation of your finances. You're just showing that fund for demonstration purposes, rather than indicating that you have access to the funds. That could be a reason for refusing your application. Also, if you submit a bank statement with no supporting documentation to prove your source of income, so you are submitting a bank statement without you providing pay slips to support the deposit on the bank statement, or the business income, or other credible sources that can reduce the credibility of the funds in your account, the financial credibility of the funds in your account, that would be a mere or a good reason for refusing your application. So like I always do, what are the solutions? So explaining with a cover letter clearly the source of funds of the lump sums in your account is very good to include in your application. Also, avoid putting huge sums of money at the tail end, close to when you'll be using the application for submission for that document for your visa application. Don't put money too close to that submission date. Try to, as much as possible, to fund your account, for 2 months, 3 months, at worst case scenario, 1 month to the day of your visa submission. That is the best advisable technique or approach you could use to avoid that red flag. Also, with the not supporting documents, not putting enough supporting documents. So ensure you put pay slips as the salary earner. Ensure you have photocopies or copies of your business receipts to show business sales, right, in your account, or the source of money from business sales, right? So copies of business receipts within that period you're submitting the bank statement is good, to erase these possible red flags that can cause you denial of your visa. Secondly, you will be refused a visa if your travel itinerary is poorly planned. First, what are the critical things that makes up a poorly planned itinerary? You don't have daily activity plan. That is, you have a vague or missing day by day breakdown of your travel activity, while you're visiting that country. That signals a lack of genuine intent to visit the country, which might, of course, lead to your visa refusal. Also, if you don't have any clear letter of intent, failure to provide a compelling reason or a motivation, which is a well-structured letter explaining why you're visiting the country at that particular time, raises doubt about your intention to visit the country as a tourist, or you're going for a study. So ensure that your itinerary is well planned. You don't make a poorly planned itinerary. So include a detailed daily activity plan. Also include a detailed, well-structured letter of intent to back up the reason why you're visiting the country at that particular time. You could also add paid tours, right? 1 or 2 paid tours that you could use as tour tickets that you've purchased online and you're using to back up your daily activity plan will be a good booster to ensuring that you have a very good, motivating itinerary well planned to support your visa application. So you will be refused a visa if your status doesn't show positive change. So positive change since your last visa denial. So if your circumstances, either financial, professional, or personal circumstances, have not improved after your last visa refusal, chances of a new application, signing of a new approval of your application would be quite slim. To ensure that there is a significant change in your circumstance before you make a new application, provided that the reasons for denial were clearly mentioned to be maybe around your finances, maybe around lack of travel history, maybe around missing documentation. So ensure there is a significant status change before you make that next visa application, because if you don't do that, it might result in an outright refusal of your visa application. Also, under this, another critical thing that you need to note is when you don't disclose past visa refusal. So the failure of disclosing past visa refusals or hiding them, especially for countries within the Five Eyes Alliance, which are UK, US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, can lead to an automatic denial. This I'm speaking from clear experience. In case of Canada, if you don't review previous visa refusals, particularly with US, UK, and others, Canada can take that as a sole reason for refusing your application, even if you meet all other requirements. So ensure that you disclose fully. So visa refusal in one country does not necessarily affect the decision of the current country you are making the application to. Ensure full, truthful revealing of your case when you are applying for a visa. So you would be refused a visa if you lack strong supporting documents. For instance, if you are sponsored, if you don't attach official sponsorship letter stating that the person inviting you over, will bear full financial responsibility. If there's a missing affidavit of sponsorship, confirming the sponsor's commitment to sponsor your trip, or if there are no valid ID or no of the sponsor to show the sponsor's identity, and also clearly a signature, that would diminish the credibility of your application, and that could also result in a refusal. Also, other documents useful for the sponsor if you have been invited would include proof of the immigration status of your inviter, copies of recent utility bill provided the sponsor has an accommodation that has been provided to you, or documents verifying and establish your relationship with the sponsor. It could be a marriage certificate, it could be a birth certificate, it could also be copies of email communication or chats that you've had with your inviter over time. That can help solidify the relationship with your sponsor and the reason for you being invited to that particular country. Finally, the fifth thing that is critical to your application that also, when missing, might result in your visa refusal is incomplete documentation. So if your documents, usually embassies have several checklists of required documentation that would support your application. If those documents which are critical to your application are missing, you would be refused the visa. So the trick is ensure you go through all the checklist that has been provided by the embassy to guide your application. So that would ensure that you don't miss any document, and you arrange your documents according to what has been requested, so that you could get an easy approval once you submit your visa application. Kindly note that visa officers assess applications based on credibility, based on transparency, and also based on clear supporting evidence. Ensure that your application is complete, ensure that you are honest, ensure that your application is well documented to maximize the chances of your visa refusal. If you have other opinions around what can result in a visa refusal based off of your experience, you can drop your comments in the comment section so that other people can also learn, and we can use that as a guide to the wider community when certain persons want to apply for the visa. So please remember to subscribe, remember to press the like button, remember to also share in your own way so that the YouTube algorithm can see this content as useful, and maybe perhaps other persons that are planning to apply, this will be their guide to ensure that they don't get refused for these 5 common reasons I've mentioned. So thank you very much for watching the video to this point. So until that next time, bye bye.